All right, so I will had a request to explain the origin story of limited resources, and I'm happy to do so. But it kind of goes back to when young Marshall, aged like 13 or 14, taught me to play Magic in 1994. He had his green, blue, green, red, everything I've got deck that was about 120 cards thick. And Marshall was best buddies with my cousin Jay, and not Jay of Friday fame, but completely different Jay. And I had met Marshall through that, and Marshall taught me to play Magic. 1994, we sat down and we both played off of his one large red-green deck, and I fell in love with the game almost immediately and got into it pretty heavily. But then actually Marshall fell out of the game basically right away. And well, not right away. I remember you were still into it, Marsh, if you're still around, like into about Stronghold level. I remember you and Jay coming over to my house and opening a box of Stronghold. You got like a Mox Diamond out of it and stuff. But in any case, Marshall basically fell out of the game, but I didn't. I stayed in it and fell in love. Got into the game industry in the early 2000s, and in the mid 2000s I was working at a place called Surreal Software, and we were working on a game called This Is Vegas. If you want to look that up, it's one of the most expensive unshipped games ever not made. It was in development for about 6 years and never shipped. That's another story for another time. In any case, because I was the gambling designer, we played a lot of poker. I was designing poker video games, and we were playing poker at lunch in our studio, and we had an evening poker game too that Marshall would come and play in sometime. So Marshall would swing by the office and play in our evening poker game. Also at the time, this was right around the time Aaron Forsythe took over as director of Magic R&D. And Aaron Forsythe wrote a couple of articles in which he explained his own past and his a lot of stuff. There's a 3-part introduction to Aaron Forsythe article series. And in it, Aaron indicated that his dad and uncle had been huge Stratomatic baseball players, and that he himself had been a big fantasy baseball fan, but didn't play it much anymore, because it's quite a time commitment and really asks a lot of you every day to play fantasy baseball. Well, I had, and I've described it on this stream, I have a format for fantasy baseball that's specifically designed for the busy person, and it's a very lightweight but fun fantasy baseball format. So out of the blue, completely cold, I wrote an email to Aaron Forsythe and said, hey, I am a fellow game designer dad in the Seattle area who's very busy and everything, and I know what you mean. That's why I developed this fantasy baseball format. I thought you might like it. And I showed him the format and said, hey, if you want to join my fantasy baseball league, there's a slot in it and you could do that. I thought he would say no. Aaron doesn't know me from anything. I just reached out. It was a total cold call, you know, but it worked. Aaron writes back to me and says, you know what, I'm in. I like it. That sounds like a really cool format. So now I suddenly have Aaron Forsythe in my fantasy baseball league. That was pretty cool, especially given that one of my personal goals at that point in the game industry was to find my way into Wizards at some point. So getting into a fantasy baseball league with the director of R&D seemed like a pretty good leg up there. In any case, another big Magic playing friend of mine in the studio and I were talking about starting a sealed league, because we had some people who would see us play Magic Online at lunch and ask about it. We had like over 100 people in the studio, so it was a pretty big hotbed of gamers, and there was a lot of Magic interest around. So we said, yeah, let's start a sealed league. And I had casually mentioned to Aaron that we were starting a sealed league at the office, and I kind of asked him, is there any data that would be helpful for you guys? You want me to track anything curious about that? In any case, Aaron wrote back and said, no, you don't need to track anything, but if you want some product, I can talk to somebody and ship you some product for that. It would be a good use of our product. And I'm like, sure, you want to send me Magic product? I'm not going to turn it down, right? And I told him how many people were going to be in the league, which is probably 20 to 30, and I didn't know what I was going to get. I just gave him my address and a thank you, and expected, honestly, I was thinking, well, maybe he'll send us a booster box or two. That would be really cool, because that would really help us get more people in, since they wouldn't even have to pay for it, you know? It seemed great. Well, about a week later, the shipping guy wheels up a cart over to my desk and proceeds to deliver a case of Morningtide boosters, 2 cases of what's the first one? Lorwyn, 2 Lorwyn cases, 1 Morningtide case, and 2 cases of starter decks. So suddenly I had 24 booster boxes dropped on me to distribute for creating magic fun in my studio at my discretion. And yeah, what a nice dude, but also what a genius dude. Aaron is pretty smart, and he recognized that sending free product to a video game studio to get a bunch of video game developers into Magic is probably a good thing, right? So sure enough, Magic explodes at our office because suddenly it's like free product for everybody. And I'm running all these leagues, and we're talking about the leagues at night. And so this is the end of Morningtide, and then Shadowmoor starts. Shadowmoor kind of comes out. And Marshall was at poker one night, and I was like, Marshall, you gotta look. I got this huge motherload of Magic product. You gotta get back. You gotta give this game a try again. He hadn't played in years, and I was like, look, it's free. Let me just give you a sealed deck, and yeah, let me give you some product, Marshall, and just try the game again. Well, Marshall fell back into it right away. He loved it. I showed him Magic Online and how to draft. He had never drafted before. That was a big key. I mean, Marshall's here, he can talk about it too, but I know the appeal of draft really hooked Marshall back right away. It's a very appealing kind of gamer mechanic, and he understood the appeal of limited almost immediately. And we started playing again. And then what happened was poker became Magic discussion time. So Marsh would show up for our evening poker game, and then he would ask questions, I would answer them, and we just go back and forth and have these long discussions over poker about Magic. Because, poker, you fold 80, 90% of your hands if you're doing it right. And so we had a lot of time to talk. And that basically, he had the bug, he was in. And at that time, I was also writing articles for puremtgo.com. and looking to make my name a little bit, just to get some awareness in the Magic community. Well, first I liked doing it. Here's what happens. I was writing Magic columns for my friends. I was like writing draft guides for Marshall. And I was just like, why am I writing all this content for 5 people? There's got to be a place I can at least put this on the internet and get it out there. That turned out to be puremtgo.com. You can go to that site and probably look up my old columns, Waiting for Godot. Magic Online columns. But then Marshall got into listening to podcasts. This is now we're in probably mid 2009. And Marshall is just starting to be a podcast listener and thinks to himself, hey, we talk about Magic constantly at poker. It seems like they're good conversations. I'm learning a ton. Ryan is spinning me up quickly. What if we dabbled with a podcast? What if we made a podcast where we basically took all these conversations we were having and just recorded them, see what happens? And basically that's what happened. So we were like, yeah, that would help me increase my name in the Magic community, maybe catch the attention of Wizards of the Coast a little bit, improve my Wizards of the Coast resume a little bit to have done this creative project. And so we gave it a shot. Figure what's the harm in recording the conversations we're basically having anyway and seeing if people wanted to listen to them. And really, that's how it began. And we're like, all right, let's just do it. We sat down. We did do a lot of pre-work to work out how we wanted it to go. Do we want what do our segments look like? Do we want to curse or not? One of the things we noticed about the podcasting Magic world at that point was that a lot of the content out there at that point was a little bit half-assed, in that people were trying to be half Magic content and half we're hilarious hosts listen to us talk about something else type content, and we didn't like that. We wanted to be nuts and bolts spikes and take it seriously. We wanted serious, basically 100% Magic content, 100% dedicated to getting better and improving at Limited. And so yeah, we got our asses in full mode and figured, hey, the bar is pretty low for Magic podcasts out there right now. Let's see if we can raise that bar. And I think we did. I think it shows the history of the show demonstrates that we took a serious approach to podcasting Magic that really worked, resonated with our audience, and really helped build up what it is today. So That is the origin story of Limited Resources. The rest, as they say, is history. I was on Limited Resources through 85 episodes before another set of circumstances did give me an opportunity at Wizards of the Coast. Ironically, while it may have helped raise my awareness, I'm pretty sure nobody I interviewed with at Wizards of the Coast had ever listened to a single episode of Limited Resources. So it's not like I had a bunch of fans in the room that just snap gave me a job because of that. But it certainly did not hurt to show them that I was so dedicated to Magic that I had started a podcast and done it for 85 episodes, you know. So, yeah. And yeah, it's been going from 2009 until now. Marshall rarely takes a week off. He could, but he just loves to do it. And turns out it's not hard for either of us to sit down and talk about Magic for a bit. So it was an easy way for me to continue my content creation. In fact, talking with Marshall once a week was so much easier than a carefully crafted draft article that I kind of stopped writing articles and just turned to podcasting full time. So there you go. That is how Limited Resources came to be. And for all you listeners out there, thank you for continuing to support it. And yeah, you can get the This is Vegas story some other time, but that'll end story time for the day. Thank you for your attention.